Hi guys, my name is Hannah Smith and I'm the Recycling Outreach Coordinator for Wood County, and I'm very excited because we're gearing up to celebrate my favorite holiday, Earth Day. And this is an extra special Earth Day because it's the 50th anniversary. And I'm going to talk to you about one simple way that you can make a big impact in protecting our planet at home, and that's through recycling. So unfortunately in America, we are very wasteful people. The average U.S. citizen creates about 4 to 5 pounds of trash per person per day, and all that trash has to go somewhere. So there's a few options that we have for managing our waste. One is landfilling, another is incineration or burning our trash, one is composting or organic recycling, and then the last one is recycling right. Fortunately, most Americans have access to either curbside or drop-off recycling nowadays. However, we've had a huge problem with knowing what to throw. It's a very frustrating and confusing because each recycling program is different depending on where you live. So the first thing that you can do to recycle right is check with your local hauler. Whether you have a municipal program, a drop-off, or a county-sponsored recycling bin, check with your website and they will tell you exactly what belongs in the bin. I always recommend that you print off a list of accepted and non-accepted recycling and you post that on your recycling bin, so if you have a question, you know where to look at. You can also call your local solid waste management district or go on their website for more information. I'm going to go over some of the problems that we see all too often with contamination in our recycling stream. Now, Lucas County, they've made some big strides in reducing their contamination. In 2016, they had over 44% contamination in the recycling stream. This meant that people were throwing in trash and other non-recyclables, and only roughly 60% of that was actually good recyclable material. What happens is that ends up going into a diesel truck, going to the recycling center, and then going back on that diesel truck to the landfill. There's a few reasons this happens. One is something we call wish cycling, which most of us are guilty of. We have these great, we don't want things to go to the landfill. We want to keep them out of dump in the earth. So we hope that they get recycled. We wish that they would be recycled. And some of the common things that we see in wish cycling are plastics. So this is an example of wish cycling. Just because it's plastic does not mean that it's locally accepted in a recycling program. Because of the shape and size of this is not recyclable. This can either be donated or it goes in the trash bin. When we talk about plastic especially, there's a lot of confusion. So most people are familiar with the chasing arrows and a 1 through 7 inside of those arrows. However, that system was developed more for the manufacturers of plastic and not for the consumers. So just because you see that sign on your bottle does not mean that it's locally accepted in a recycling program. What we're more concerned about is the size and shape of our plastic containers. So for instance, we want something that looks like this. It has head and a shoulders, or most people are used to a single-use plastic water bottle. It has a head and shoulders on it. So any plastic bottle or jug from your kitchen, laundry room, or bathroom is usually accepted in your recycling stream. We want to make sure that these are empty and clean, because what happens when they're full is they get put into the back of the recycling hauler's truck, they get smashed down, and this is going to contaminate all of our fiber products. So all of our cardboard, our mixed paper, our mail, our magazines, this could all get ruined if we don't empty our plastic containers. And fiber is especially important right now because we're obviously dealing with the novel coronavirus. And so the fiber recyclers are looking for all the cardboard that they can, all the mixed paper that they can, because we're doing a lot more deliveries and we're making a lot more tissue paper and paper towels and things of that nature. So we want to make sure that we're giving them good, solid fiber material. Recycling is just like any other business. It's all about supply and demand. So if there's a big demand, we want to make sure that we're supplying them with a good product. Another thing we see a lot in the recycling bins that does not belong are coffee cups. These often get mistaken because it looks like it's plastic and paper, which are both ostensibly recyclable. However, this is not the shape and size that we want. It's not a bottle or a jug, so this goes in the trash. This also is not just paper, it's made up of components of wax, plastic, and paper, so it's very hard for them to break it down economically. So when we talk about the 3 R's, it's reduce first, reuse second, and then recycle. We can reduce our dependence on things like this by having reusable mugs or by making coffee at home. The biggest problem that we have in our current recycling stream is flexible packaging. So flexible packaging or flexible plastics refer to any plastics that you can poke your finger through, such as a dry cleaner bag, grocery bags, your sandwich bags, even some of the mailers that you might get on Amazon. Those are all considered flexible packaging. Those are not accepted in our drop-off or curbside recycling programs because when these go to the processing center, they get tangled up in the equipment and they cause them to have to come to a complete halt and stop their processes, which ultimately loses them money and loses the ability to recycle. These can, however, be recycled in store. So we want to take these to our grocery store like a Kroger, Meijer, Walmart, Target, Home Depot, where you get your carts out. Most of the time they'll have a bin and you can put all of your flexible packaging, as long as it's clean, inside that bin. This is great because they can process this separately and turn it into things like plastic lumber. So it keeps it out of the landfill and gives it a new purpose. The other thing we see a lot of is bag recycling. So recycling and trash are 2 different systems. Especially with COVID, they want you to bag all of your trash. However, if this comes to the recycling center, this gets thrown away. If it looks like trash, it's going to get thrown away like trash. So even though you can see I have cans and plastic bottles and great recyclable material in here, they don't have the manpower or the time to sort through every single plastic bag and hope that there's recycling inside. So unfortunately, this will go straight to the landfill. We want our recycling empty, clean, and loose. You can transport it in a bag or a cart, but make sure you dump it empty into your recycling bin or recycling drop-off. Another thing I wanted to touch on was organic recycling. And if you're interested in composting, make sure you check out Kurt Bench's feature. He's going to be talking a lot more about composting. But composting is a great way to limit our dependence on our landfills. Unfortunately, in America, 40% of food that's produced and processed goes right into the landfill. When something like a banana ends up in the landfill, there's no natural decomposition. It decomposes anaerobically. That means that when it breaks down, it releases methane, which is a very potent greenhouse gas, 20 to 80 times more potent than carbon dioxide. So when this methane goes into the atmosphere, we're actually accelerating global climate change. However, if we compost our food scraps and our yard waste at home, we can create free natural fertilizer for our gardens, and we can also do something called sequestering carbon, which means that that soil amendment is actually holding in and storing carbon. So on one hand, going to the landfill, we're releasing all this carbon into the atmosphere, but by using it at home in our compost bin, we're storing that carbon naturally. So it's a great, easy way to reduce your footprint. So I have just a few more tips, and I'm going to share these with you online as well. We don't want to recycle anything smaller than a sticky note. When things like this that are so small, such as shredded paper or little scraps of materials, go into the recycling, they don't have enough weight to actually be processed. It's a very mechanized system. There's less hand picking and it's more automated sorting. So things like this are going to stick onto our plastic bottle, and then both of these materials are no longer able to be recycled. There's also other ways that we can recycle things like electronics, household hazardous waste such as chemicals and paint, and we can also donate or give away some of our items as well. Whatever we do to keep things out of the landfill is the best way that we can use our resources. If you have questions, contact your local recycling or waste hauler or your local solid waste management district. They'll be able to give you more resources, and sometimes they have free opportunities to recycle hard to recycle items. Especially with COVID, we're staying at home, we're generating a lot more waste at our home, so we need to be conscious of what we're doing with that waste. The best things that we can do is reduce our waste in the first place. Only buy what we need. Make sure we have a list when we're going to the grocery store so we don't end up with food waste. Make plans for your meals so we can limit the amount of materials that are going to the landfill. And by recycling right, we can guarantee that everything that we put in the bin gets a new life in the recycling stream. Thanks!